Richard Burnett is CEO of the Road Haulage Association. I spoke to him just before we came on air this morning just to get his reaction to the news.
So what's happened overnight is, the UK government has reached agreement with the French government to lift the border. So literally at 6 o'clock this morning, the first vehicles will start to have rolled through the testing that's going to be put in place. So this agreement means that we've got to do what's called lateral flow testing, which is the very quick test. It probably takes about 15 minutes to complete, as opposed to the PCR testing, which the French were insisting upon. So what that means is it's going to start to release these drivers. We're going to start to get the ferries and Eurotunnel working this morning, and we can get on top of the thousands of trucks that we've got parked in Kent and Essex at this point in time.
As you say, these vehicles are going to start to roll a little bit later on today. But what are the conditions? Yeah. What have the conditions been like for the drivers there? We've seen them in their cabs. We've seen them making beans in a tin at the side of the road. What are they telling you?
Well, horrendous, to be honest with you, Tony. These guys are used to being on the road, but they're not used to being in queues and not having any facilities. So literally there's been no toilets. There's been no access to hot food apart from what they can actually cook, within their vehicles. I think it's pretty shocking. We've been heading towards transition for 3 years now. Government have been reassuring us that they've got all of these plans in place, and they should have been able to have pressed a button and made sure that these facilities, welfare facilities, were there. Now, I know that there are going to be vehicles going in there this morning with food, I guess vans, trucks, the sort of things that you'd see at festivals, going to cook food for these drivers in Manston. But it's all a bit too late, Tony. This is a lesson that government need to learn, and certainly for the forthcoming weeks and months. So I think we're likely to see similar kind of disruption as we head into January, February as well.
Let's just go back to these lateral flow tests. You can get a result within half an hour. Okay, fine, you're okay, off you go. What if you fail the test? Where do the drivers go? Where do they self-isolate?
Okay, so these tests are going to be completed on the M20 for those drivers that are going into Folkestone to get on Eurotunnel, and they're going to be completed in Manston Airport. What the proposal is, if you get a positive test that says you've got coronavirus, you then have to be directed towards Manston Airport, where this PCR test will be completed to just reaffirm that you have definitely got coronavirus. If that is the case, then the driver's vehicle will be quarantined, the driver will be quarantined, the driver will be taken to a local hotel which is being set up, to actually accommodate and look after these drivers while they get better.
The chances of drivers getting home to see their families at Christmas now. I mean, we've got UK drivers. There's foreign drivers who've been here as well who try to get across Europe too. Some will, I guess, but there'll be a hell of a lot who are just not going to make that now, I presume.
Again, Tony, you're absolutely right. So if you can imagine, what you see on the television is only a small part of the picture. We've got lots of vehicles that have held back going into Kent, because of a complete lack of facilities. So the estimates are at the moment in terms of the inbound flow that's come in from Europe over the last couple of days, and that's been down against normal volumes because clearly lots of drivers didn't want to come. But we estimate there's probably somewhere in the region of 8,000 to 10,000 trucks that need to get back to Europe now. The clearance DFT this morning are trying to work out what that capacity model looks like, depending upon the throughput of tests that are being done. But it's going to take us into probably, I would say, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, to get these drivers back through across the short straits into Europe. Probably 95% of the vehicles in the queue, at the moment are European drivers, but that's a pretty miserable thing to have to face just before Christmas, not being able to get back and spend time, with your families. I really feel for these guys and girls.
Well, we sensed a lot of anger late last night. Drivers out of their cabs, standing on the roofs of their cabs in some cases, blowing horns and confronting the police. And the police said, well, look, there's absolutely nothing what we can do. It's the frustration, really, isn't it? And the worry too. Not only that, but you've got a wagon full of stuff that you need to get back. I mean, these are tough times for these drivers.
Yeah, extremely. I think the other thing to bear in mind is that it feels like these drivers have been used pawns in a bigger game, and I think that's deeply frustrating as well. And right the way through the COVID pandemic, Tony, drivers, HGV drivers, warehouse staff, that they've had to work almost at the front line, in the same way that the NH staff have had to, and we've had to protect, the workforce right the way through this. I think it's fair to say that if you consider a driver, they're a pretty, they work in an isolated environment anyway. They're in the cabs pretty much all day. When they get to the delivery point or collection point, they're socially distanced. Drivers have had the lowest levels of COVID, in many workforces, between 3 and 6% right the way through, whereas warehouse, factory is more like 30-40% sickness levels. So the risk was incredibly low, and the French have been, I think, very deliberate in terms of their actions. Clearly that's been stood behind this position of not wanting the virus, or this strain of virus to spread. But, we're in the middle of a negotiation with the EU. We're not quite there yet, and it feels like a lever that's been pulled unnecessarily.
Richard, we've got about a minute left. How do you think this delay and the knock-on effect caused by it could impact our supplies of food and other goods in the coming days and into the new year? We're an island, of course. This is how we move stuff around.
Yeah, well, so these measures that have been put in place, they're going to be reviewed on the 31st of January. There is a sunset clause within the agreement which says it has to complete on the 6th, of January. For sure, but these delays, these queues that are created, if that's going to carry on, then that's going to slow our supply chain. We've already got the risk of drivers in Europe not wanting to come to the UK. 30% of our food comes from Europe. If you think about the short shelf life products, whether it's fresh veg, fruit, there's going to be a significant problem if this carries on with the supply of those goods. We've done a good job so far in terms of bringing stockpiling ambient products ready for the new year, but I think we're likely to see a disruption to that flow if we don't find a resolution to this. And as I say, we've got transition in January as well on top of that, so it's going to be a challenging time.
Challenging time. You're not kidding. There's Richard Burnett, the CEO of the Road Haulage Association.